What is going on, Alabama fans? Chris Daughtery here with the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. We have an interview set for you guys tomorrow, so if you guys love that type of content, if you want us to do more of that type of content, help me out. Show the bosses that you guys would love for us to do some more interviews with current Alabama players. Help me out. Let the bosses know that that is what you guys want to see, and spread the word and share today's video for me right now. All right, coming up on today's show, we are just over 48 hours away now until Alabama kicks off for the first game of the season against Florida State. So on today's show, we are predicting some of Alabama starters. We're going to go through the entire team now. One player in particular here doesn't actually need a prediction, but we're going to go through this entire roster, and we are going to predict some of those guys that are going to be out there for the first snaps of the ball game. All right, the first guy, like I said, needs no prediction at all. He has already been named your starting quarterback. It is Ty Simpson. And I'll tell you what, guys, every single time we see Ty Simpson in the media, whether it was, last night during the Hey Coach show, whether it's, going out there after practice, talking to Alabama media, this guy absolutely fires me up. I am super excited for Ty Simpson to take the field in a couple of days here against Florida State. He's a former five-star guy. He has waited his turn, hasn't complained about anything. The leadership is one thing that Ty Simpson has really talked about. This team has talked about with him. He has grown a lot in terms of being a vocal leader on this team, and I get it. He hasn't really played a lot, and, that's fine. He sat behind guys like Bryce Young. He sat behind Jalen Milroe for a couple of seasons, had that opportunity to play against South Florida a couple seasons ago, and, just wasn't quite there yet. But I think going into this season, Ty Simpson is the leader that this team needs, and being in this system with Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer, I think he's really going to thrive. And I think one thing that, I have continued to say on this program is that I think a lot of people are really underrating his athletic ability. We've heard the comps of Mac Jones, and I just don't really see that in Ty Simpson at all. Yes, he's going to be able to get the ball to his playmakers like Mac Jones did, but man, this guy is really athletic. He's going to use his feet a lot. The 3 touchdowns that he has in his career are all rushing touchdowns. He had that long of 78. I believe that was against Chattanooga a couple of years ago. And, really should have a 4th touchdown. We talked about that a lot where he dropped the ball through the back of the end zone there. But, man, I am super, super excited about Ty Simpson going into this season, and I really do see him as a true leader on this team. And like I said, man, every single time this kid opens his mouth, he's not really fiery towards the media or anything like that. But, last night during Hey Coach, he was talking about the fact that, he's going out there. He's taking the first team reps in this ball game. He's got to go down there. He's got to score. And, when it comes to that, too, he's also going over to the defensive side of the ball when they're on the sidelines. And he's saying, look, guys, when you guys go out there and you get these stops, we're then going to go down there and score a touchdown. That really did fire me up last night. All right, on to the running back spot now. With Jam Miller out, I'm going to go Daniel Hill and Richard Young as your 2 starting running backs for the Crimson Tide, at least in this first game against Florida State. And I think both of these guys, they haven't played a ton in their career either, but, the projection for these guys, we've seen the flashes. Richard Young had a big run last year as well. I think we've seen a little bit more of Richard Young, but man, Daniel Hill is a massive, massive human being as well. I'm not trying to compare him to Derrick Henry, but he is about that same size as we saw from a guy like Derrick Henry a couple of years ago as well. And they haven't done a ton, in the pass catching game necessarily, but Richard Young, I would say he looks as good as he has ever looked. We've seen some photos of him catching the ball in practice and stuff like that, and he looks really, really good along the pass-catching game there. So, not necessarily thinking that he's not going to, contribute in that in the pass-catching game there, but I do think that there's some other guys on this team that, can really do that at that running back spot, and I think the guy that Alabama is going to have to do that starting off the season anyways, if there's going to be a way that he gets on the field, I think it's going to be Draylen Washington. You got him in the transfer portal from Louisiana, and in his career, he's done a good job in that aspect as well. So, I'm very confident in this Alabama running back room, although they do not have Jam Miller out there for the first game of the season, but I think, it's going to be kind of a three-headed monster for Alabama, at least for the first couple games of the year. All right, so pick a starting running back for me. Who do you guys think goes out there for the first snap on the offensive side of the ball? Type RY for Richard Young, DH for Daniel Hill, or DW for Dre Washington. Let me know what you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, over to the offensive line now. No real surprises at your tackle spots and your center spot. I've got Cam Dewberry going to be your starter there at that left guard spot because really, with the injuries to Jaden Roberts right now, I've got Geno VanDeMark over at the right guard spot. It was originally thought that, Jaden Roberts was going to be your right guard, and then there was going to be a bit of a battle there at that left guard spot, but with Jaden Roberts right now being questionable with a concussion, he's been dealing with that for, about 2 weeks now. I just don't see a way where Jaden Roberts is actually able to go out there and actually start for Alabama in the first game of the season. I think with Geno VanDeMark, he is also, he has a lot of trust from this Alabama coaching staff as well. So, very unfortunate what Jaden is going through right now. I think when he's out there 100%, the guy is an absolute animal out there, but I'm also very, very confident in what Geno VanDeMark can do for you along the offensive line. All right, over to the wide receiver spot now. No real prediction when it comes to this. This is just what it's going to be. Ryan Williams, Germie Bernard, and Isaiah Horton are going to be your three main guys there catching passes for the Crimson Tide this year. The unfortunate thing last year was that Ryan Williams and Germie Bernard were legitimately the only two targets that Jalen Milroe had to throw the ball to. And yeah, sure, there were some inconsistencies on his part too, but these were the only two consistent wide receivers for Alabama. And also adding Isaiah Horton to the fold as well. He really broke out for Miami last year. And, what's kind of crazy about it is he would have been Alabama's wide receiver 3. He was like Miami's wide receiver 5 last year with those stats right there. 56 catches, 616 yards. So just, with the depth of this wide receiver room as well, these guys, they're going to catch a lot of passes. And what's interesting, with the talent that you have in all three of these guys, I think one guy might lead in receptions, one guy might lead in yards, and another guy might lead in touchdowns. I think there's a very good possibility that you could get, a lot of receptions, a lot of catches to all three of these guys and some of those backups as well. So I'm very, very excited about these three guys catching passes for Ty Simpson. So who do you think will lead the team in receptions this year? We asked yardage a couple of days ago. I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think will lead the team in receptions? Type 2 for Ryan Williams, type 5 for Germie Bernard, or type 1 if you think it's going to be Isaiah Horton. All right, now to the tight end spot. I just went ahead and added 4 guys to this because I think you legitimately could see 4 tight ends really get a lot of playing time for Alabama. And, now that I'm looking at this too, I hate to also not add Jay Lindsey on there because he's been in the program for a couple of seasons. And, Josh Cuevas and Danny Lewis Jr. are going to be your 2 starters, but there has been so much buzz about Marshall Pritchett, about Caleb Edwards coming in as true freshmen for this Alabama team. And, when it comes to Josh Cuevas, I will say I think he's probably one of my favorite players on this team. Just his attitude, his demeanor. Came over from Washington with Kalen DeBoer, and last year was, you saw him in different spots and stuff like that. I think this year with a quarterback that is going to be able to consistently get his playmakers the ball, I think you're going to see these tight ends really shine in this offense this year. And, we talked about Marshall Pritchett. We talked about Caleb Edwards. Both of these guys coming in as true freshmen, and they have gotten even bigger since they've been on campus. Marshall Pritchett, I believe, is like 248 now or something like that, and Caleb Edwards is like up in the 260s. So, these guys, the body size, and Marshall Pritchett, my God, he is an insane athlete. And Caleb Edwards ain't no slouch either. He's not just going to be a blocking tight end. These guys went absolutely crazy in their senior season of high school. Marshall Pritchett had 51 catches. Caleb Edwards had 44 catches. Both of these guys over 600 yards of production for their high school team. So I think there's going to be a very, very good chance that these guys play a lot for Alabama this season. We're just going to have to see, Alabama, they love to use, multiple tight ends, whether that's 3 tight ends at a time. I think you're going to see these guys play a lot this season. All right, we'll continue here in just a second, but today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Football is almost here, and college football is officially back, so don't miss any of the action this season on PrizePicks. I personally use PrizePicks for so many different types of sporting events, whether it's professional football, baseball, basketball, college sports, MMA, and so much more. PrizePicks is a ton of fun, and if you guys know ball, you can win real money all season long on PrizePicks. We've got a PrizePicks slate cooked up for you guys. This is the power play that we're going with this week. Ohio State versus Texas, going with Arch Manning, 1.5 touchdowns. Going with more than on that, passing touchdowns to be specific there. Isaiah Horton, good for at least 1 touchdown, I think, in this game. So going with more than on him. And look, Ryan Williams is always good for a big play as well. So 28.5. The longest reception for Ryan Williams, going with the more than on that as well. PrizePicks is super simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money today. PrizePicks also invented the flex play, which means you can cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. So download the PrizePicks app today and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link is down in the description of today's show. It's also going to be down at the pinned comment of today's show as well. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball now, starting off along the defensive line, specifically at that bandit position. LT Overton, Jordan Renaud are going to be your 2 main guys that are at that bandit position, but man, Keon Keeley is coming, and I'm very excited about him as well. But man, LT Overton, the thing that we have talked so much about him is he's got to be able to finish. He's got to be able to turn those pressures actually into sacks, because last year, he got to the quarterback. He got in the backfield a lot, but, it was almost like when he got back there, it kind of turned into, baby giraffe legs at times and kind of got juked out. So he's got to be able to turn those pressures into sacks. I think that's also going to help your secondary as well, and he can help in the run game, but, man, just getting him to be able to actually finish and get some sacks this year is going to be a big, big key thing. And then Keon Keeley and Jordan Renaud. Keon Keeley has gone through, a bunch of stuff here at Alabama, some different position changes and stuff like that. But, man, he is right on the brink of really becoming a impact piece for Alabama this year. And Jordan Renaud, we saw the flashes last year of him as well. Came in that same class as Keon Keeley. Had 9 stops according to PFF. Only played 140 snaps, but I think, in that Michigan game, he really did shine. And I think just going into this season, we are going to see a lot of Jordan Renaud. So if you haven't heard of him yet, you are going to hear about Jordan Renaud a lot this season. We will be live for Alabama versus Florida State for our watch party. We're going to be live for every single Alabama football game. So do not miss out. Get down there, hit that sub button, and come party with us on Saturday. Now to the interior of this defensive line room, that defensive tackle spot in particular. Unfortunately, Tim Keenan, it came out yesterday that he has been injured. He's going to have tightrope surgery on that ankle, and it's a very, very unfortunate thing. You also have James Smith and Jeremiah Beeman that are going to be guys that are going to have to step up for Alabama. So Tim Keenan is going to miss multiple games for this Alabama team. And it really does suck because he is the guy in the middle that is that run stuffer. And I think this year he was going to take even a step forward in that, pass rushing element to his game as well. But like I said, there's going to have to be some guys that step up along the interior. Kalen DeBoer talked about, some of these younger guys that they didn't necessarily expect to be thrust into action quite yet. They might be playing a little bit sooner than they actually expected there. If it's, if I'm just making a prediction on, who are some going to be those younger guys that step up, I think it's going to be probably a guy like Edric Hill, London Simmons. They have really stuck out, and we've heard a lot of positive things about them, from the springtime, summertime, and now in fall camp. So, I'm sure they're going to test a bunch of different things, but James Smith and Jeremiah Beeman, they're also going to, have to carry a little bit bigger of a load along this defensive line. Over to that outside linebacker spot now, specifically that Wolf position. I think Quay Russaw is in for just a magical season for Alabama. Jamarian Latham. Remember last year he played at that bandit spot, came back for an extra year as well, and they actually moved him over to that Wolf spot during that Michigan game, or really it was even before that later on in the season there. But when it comes to Quay Russaw, man, I'm very, very excited about that kid. It's kind of the same thing there with LT Overton. Got to get to the quarterback a little bit more, but, with things that they ask this Wolf position to do, they also asked them to drop back in coverage. He had 2 interceptions last year as well. I think he's ready to wreak havoc on opposing offenses this year. Now to the middle linebacker spot. Deontae Lawson obviously coming back from that nasty knee injury that he had last year. Justin Jefferson and Nakai Hill-Green are also going to get a lot of playing time this year at that spot for the Crimson Tide. Obviously, Deontae and Justin Jefferson, those are going to be your top 2 guys. But Kane Womack does obviously love to use 3 linebackers, at the same time. And I think that's going to be a thing that we see a lot for Alabama this season. Nakai Hill-Green has, worked through a lot of, different he's gone through a lot of different, places playing college football. Last year at Colorado, he was really, really good as well. So my big question is, Deontae Lawson going to be 100% by the time he comes back for the first game of the season? I'm not quite sure. I don't know if I'm necessarily, 100% sold on him being 100% healthy, but, I'm very excited to see what he can do for Alabama this season as well. Now to the cornerback spot. Man, I put it 1A and 1B here because Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown are definitely going to be your starting corners this year. But Dijon Lee and Cam Calhoun are right there as well. Kane Womack talked about Dijon Lee being a guy that he considers a starter, and I think Cam Calhoun, he got a lot of work at that nickel spot at Utah, and that might even be a spot that he gets some work this season for Alabama. Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown, though, man, they were so good for Alabama last year. Obviously, Damani coming over from USC, where it had a little bit of a slow start to his career, and then Xavier Brown coming in as a true freshman, man. What Mo Linguist has been able to do with these true freshmen at Alabama at that cornerback spot has been very, very impressive. And these guys are just really, really elite cornerbacks right now for the Crimson Tide. All right, now to the Husky spot. DaShawn Jones has really been the guy that has gotten most of the buzz here at that Husky spot for Alabama. You also got a guy like Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. that I think might get a little bit of playing time this year as well. But, like I said earlier, I kind of have a feeling that, Cam Calhoun is eventually going to be that guy at that Husky spot. But for this first game against Florida State, I think DaShawn Jones is going to be the guy that goes out there for Alabama. So let me know. Pick a Husky down inside the comment section. Who would you start if you were Kalen DeBoer? Type DJ for DaShawn Jones. Type DKJ for Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. Or type CC for Cam Calhoun. Let me know. Who would you put out there at that Husky spot for the Crimson Tide? Now to the safety spot. You have 2 absolutely elite safeties and then one guy, really a couple of guys in the waiting here at that safety spot that are very elite as well. Your starters that are going to be out there, it's going to be Keon Sapp and it's going to be Bray Hubbard. But I do also think there might be some different types of looks that you see where, those safeties actually in the back end might be Keon Sapp and Zay Mincy. But then, Bray Hubbard might come in to do some pass rushing looks or, kind of come down in the box at that linebacker spot as well. Because when it comes to Bray Hubbard, man, his ability to come downfield and just put a hat on a hat is very elite. I love the fact that we have a safety in Bray Hubbard that is able to come down the field and just put the boom and help you out in the run game as well. And, Keon Sabb coming back from that injury, I think, going into year 2 under this Kane Womack system, I think, the communication is going to be a whole lot better than it was last year. And I'm very, very excited about this safety room for Alabama. I think it's going to be one of the best safety rooms in college football.